I don't know if there are magazines that cover all the YouTuber gossip, but I gotta tell you guys, they would be all the rage if they did exist, because last week, famous YouTuber MrBeast announced that he's considering taking both the MrBeast Burger and the Feastables brands public via an IPO. Small Cap Steve here, folks. If you're new to this channel, congratulations, you finally found us. We are the best kept secret on all of YouTube. Well, guys, today we're going to be talking about MrBeast and the IPO of the Feastables and MrBeast Burger brands. And if you don't know what an IPO is, well, it's when a company raises money right before they go public. But the key idea here is that it's part of going public, which means that if MrBeast were to do this, you soon could buy stock in the great MrBeast. Well, if you don't have a kid who's constantly watching YouTube, you might not know who the top YouTubers in the world are. Let's start off this video by discussing who MrBeast is. MrBeast, whose real name is Jimmy Donaldson, has amassed 128 million subscribers on his main YouTube channel, while having a combined 82 million on various other channels. He has a total reach of about 210 million subscribers. Since last January, his channel has added 50 million subscribers, and that makes him the fastest growing YouTube channel on the platform. His videos typically get over 65 million views, and it's not uncommon for him to breach the 100 million view point. MrBeast has some of the most viewed videos on all of YouTube, such as when he recreated the Netflix show Squid Game in real life for contestants to have the chance to win $456,000. As you would expect for anybody who's built this large of a following and this large of an audience, they're going to start asking themselves, how do I monetize this? How do I cash in on all those followers? Well, in one particular venture, MrBeast has decided to get into the burger business with a burger chain called MrBeast Burger. Beast Burger is an online burger chain that started in November 2020. They have over 1,000 restaurants participating in the business. The business is quite simple. It's a supplier of branded burgers and other fast food items. The participating restaurants license the different items, cook them, and then sell them on delivery apps such as Uber Eats, Grubhub, Skip the Dishes, you name it. Notably, Beast Burger has partnerships with fellow YouTube content creators in DreamWorks Animations for Shreks to the Shrek Quesadilla for MrBeast Burger. As for Feastables, MrBeast's chocolate bar company, well, you can either buy 10 chocolate bars or a 6-pack of cookies for $30 US. So was MrBeast drumming up investment bank interest in his brand to get more views, or is there some legitimacy behind this thought of him taking these two brands public? Axios reported that MrBeast has been meeting with bankers to try to raise $150 million for 10% of his portfolio of businesses, which is mainly the MrBeast brand and the YouTube channels, at a valuation of $1.5 billion. So you might be wondering, is $1.5 billion for a YouTuber sensible? Well, there actually is a precedent here. If we go to that fandom page where they tell us who the top YouTubers in the world right now are based on subscribers, there is actually a channel that is higher than MrBeast, which is CoComelon. Those are those nice baby videos with nursery rhymes starring JJ. Well, Candle Media paid $3 billion in cash and stock to the company behind CoComelon, which is called Moonbug Entertainment. Candle Media paid that $3 billion when the stock market was going crazy, but it gives us some idea that MrBeast valuing his company at $1.5 billion doesn't seem like a terrible valuation. But it's a moot point because we're not talking about the MrBeast brand. We're talking about a burger chain that MrBeast has licensed his name to, and we're talking about a consumer packaged good company that sells chocolate bars and cookies. We actually do have a valuation we can look at here. Last January, Feastables raised $5 million at a $50 million valuation. So we would presume that Feastables would be worth probably at least that today. As for MrBeast Burger, well, it's a little complicated because the company is actually a joint venture with Virtual Dining Concepts, which was founded by the founder of Planet Hollywood. Right now on the internet, I can't figure out what percentage of the joint venture Jimmy actually owns, but this would presumably have to be worked out with some sort of a deal with the joint venture partner before IPOing the MrBeast Burger company. This ghost kitchen concept is becoming increasingly popular as more and more consumers turn to online ordering and delivery for their meals. Ghost kitchens allow for a more flexible business model for restaurant operators who can then test out new concepts or menu items without the risk of having to have a physical location. Well, MrBeast isn't in the ghost kitchen business. He is in the branding business, where he effectively sells his brands to ghost kitchens, who then can turn and monetize that brand by selling these items. That's why this is such an appealing business proposition for MrBeast. He can just open up 1,000 locations and he doesn't have to worry about managing the staff at 1,000 locations. You're probably saying, gee, Steve, that sounds like an operational nightmare. How do we know that there's any quality control or consistency from one location to the next? So when I quickly Googled the reviews for MrBeast Burger, and I live in the Toronto area, that concern seems to be playing out right before us, where the vast majority of reviews are in the low 3 stars or even in the 2s, telling me that most people are not actually enjoying their experience when they order food from MrBeast Burger. So this is kind of fun. In an article from Forbes, where they actually mentioned that he is in the Forbes 30 under 30, which of course includes such prestigious names as Elizabeth Holmes and Sam Bankman-Fried, we discover that Jimmy's stake in MrBeast Burger generated around $3 million for Jimmy in 2021. And they tell us that that represents about 4% of that year's sales, which, if we just use basic math, that tells us that MrBeast Burger generated around $75 million in total sales in 2021, which I don't think that would actually count towards US GAAP, because those sales technically aren't on his platform. That's just licensing, so that's just effectively a royalty. But anyways, why don't we take a quick second to go through some other burger companies and fast food companies to get a sense of what the margins look like in this business. Let's start with Red Robin, who I actually quite enjoy. Well, they lost $55 million in net income over the last 12 months. They generated negative $21 million in operating income, and that's on $1.25 billion of top line revenue. So right there, we can see that the burger business is not working out so well for Red Robin Gourmet Burgers. Next, we can look at McDonald's, who generated, get this, $5.9 billion in net income. Yes, you heard that right. In the last 12 months, and they did so on $22.9 million of top line revenue. It's important to note, though, that McDonald's is the most successful burger brand in the world. And secondly, if you've ever seen the McDonald's movie, we know that they make most of their money off of real estate, which is obviously very high margin, and franchise fees, which is very high margin. Okay, so looking at these two burger companies, I would say that we are 1 for 2. McDonald's very profitable, Red Robin Burger not so much. Next, I'd like to look at Chipotle, who has been one of the fastest growing food chains over the last 2 decades, which, by the way, they IPO'd in the mid, say, 2005 range. If you bought the stock at the time of IPO and held on to it today, you'd be up over 3,100%. Well, we can see that in the last 12 months, they've done about $809 million in net income, on around $1 billion in operating income, on $8.4 billion of top line revenue. That brings you to a net income margin of just under 10%. One other company we could take a quick look at here is Fat Brands, who owns Fat Burger, Johnny Rockets, and Marble Slab, who you probably know. So this is a fairly diverse food company. Well, they have lost about $75 million in net income over the last 12 months on $14.6 million of operating income. That's mostly due to interest expense. So if this had a clean cap table, they would probably be making money. I think that's fair to say. And they did that on about $377 million of top line revenue. So that works out to sub 5% net income margin, should we treat operating income as net income, which obviously doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it would probably be somewhere in that ballpark, should they not be paying all this money to just paying off debt, or not even paying off debt, but paying the interest on the debt. So we can see from the sample size, first off, the food business is really tough. Secondly, it's probably ridiculous to be comparing MrBeast to McDonald's, because McDonald's is the most successful burger company in the world. But we just kind of want to get a sense of like, hey, this can be done if it's done really well. The royalty model actually is great because there's not really a whole lot of expenses to it. But all that being said, if he does plan on actually opening physical locations, it's going to be very challenging for him. But if all he does is just, you know, whore out his brand to all of these different ghost kitchens, well, it actually could have a detrimental effect on the MrBeast brand, of which he's currently valuing at around $1.5 billion. Something else that I think is worth touching on is that MrBeast has such a large audience that should he actually take any part of him public and get behind it, there's a chance that there's going to be so much retail interest in whatever he does that we're going to see a massive misallocation of capital where everybody just wants to invest in the man, the myth, the legend, MrBeast. Which, of course, when you have a cheap cost of capital, that's a tremendous opportunity for a real operator. But let's be clear here, operating a burger brand or chain or whatever it ends up becoming versus operating a great YouTube channel are two totally different things. He's obviously leaning on virtual dining concepts, but I mean, Planet Hollywood ended up being a disaster. And also the reviews here are telling us that the rollout of this thing has been a disaster. So good on him if he does an IPO and there's lots of capital flowing into whatever he ends up taking public. He needs to have real operators in there that can actually run a burger business. There's actually tremendous risk to the MrBeast brand if MrBeast fails. Let's look at Logan Paul, which is a great analog. He raised a bunch of money for CryptoZoo. Bunch of retail investors lost money, and now his brand is heavily tarnished. This could happen to MrBeast, so he's got to be careful here with going and taking a bunch of money from his audience to expect him to be a quality custodian of capital. The bottom line, though, is that this is going to be a conversation we're going to be having regularly, where a social media star takes their brand and they license it out to go sell a bunch of consumer goods. And sometimes it's going to be a tremendous success. Sometimes it's going to be a tremendous flop. But the fact of the matter is that when you have an audience that large, you have the ability to monetize it by selling people things. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you can let me know in the comments section, have you tried MrBeast Burger? Do you think it's a good idea for MrBeast to consider taking this company public? Do you think that I should launch a brand? You guys are now in my audience. Would you guys buy a small cap Steve brand of cereal? I'm thinking something that will be sort of like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, sort of like Cookie Crisp. I don't know. I got a lot of ideas in this noggin. Guys, let me know what you think in the comment section. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so we keep making more of these videos for y'all. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.